Hello everybody, so today we're doing a watercolour landscape in more or less a traditional way. I'm working from this photo, which is this lovely sunlit lane in Halnaker, and I've done a test one. With watercolours it's always worthwhile to do a test one. You don't really care, it's just a test, and you can try out colours and techniques and what's going to work and what isn't. So this is a test one I've already done. And I just love doing dappled shade, big fan of dappled shade. And what I'm going to do is use masking fluid to actually mask out some white areas. But the trouble with this method of painting using masking fluid is that it takes a long. Everything has to be dry. The paper you put it on has to be dry. The masking fluid has to be dry before you start applying washes. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll have a little break, and then I will come back and start painting. The point of this lesson is to show you how to paint a traditional watercolour, which is light to dark. So you want the light washes on, and then again I'll have to wait for that to dry, and then I'll apply a medium tone and then a dark tone. And it's actually getting this tonal value between the light and the shadow that gives the light to the painting. So get your shadows right, and then the light will appear. Okay, so just put that aside. So I'm just going to apply the masking fluid first, but I'm going to do a little bit of a draw. I've got my kit here, which I'll go through. This is Fabriona rough paper on a glued block. I'm using this because it's absolutely my favourite paper, and I just get really excited touching it. It's quite sad, really. And I just love it, so I'm going to use that. And so I'm going to try and draw this up. And the main thing is the path. I'm not going to draw a huge amount of detail. So I've got the horizon line there, sort of. And I'm using a grey water-soluble crayon here. I prefer that to pencil, because it will disappear into the paint, I hope. So I've got this, so this is the light at the end of the tunnel. So I've got these two light bits. I don't know if you can see, I'll press a little bit harder. And these are the bits I'm going to mask. And it comes down like this, and then it comes around here, down here to this, and up here to that. Oh dear, perhaps I put it in the wrong place. Maybe I have to move it over a bit. And then we've got this coming down here. Yes, I put it too far over, so let's go over here. And I'm hoping that most things will disappear. So here we've got these dark canopy of trees, and they come down here. And one way of linking all this is actually thinking about what the shadows are doing. So we've got this shape here. This is, it's not very long, but it's near Halnaker Windmill in West Sussex, and it's supposed to be a Roman road, and the idea of these Roman soldiers trudging along here, although it doesn't look terribly straight now I think about it, but a very old drove way, and it's been there for 2,000 years, they think. It's just lovely. So if you have a chance to get to West Sussex, have a look. So I'm going to do that, and then I've got a light area here, and I've got the light through the trees up here, and I'm just going to put some blobs on. And I'm going to mask those. I don't think I would do that normally. I didn't do it in my rough version of it, but I want you to show you how masking fluid works. So here's my masking fluid. It's very temperamental. I've got one I can't open and one that's congealed completely, and this one that's just left. And what I'm going to use is a rigger. You can see this has got a much longer bristle, made for doing rigging. And I'm just going to put some soap on it. That's the big thing. Put soap on your brush. I find riggers work better with masking fluid because it's basically glue. I mean, this is Copydex, and normally what happens, the glue sticks in the end here in the ferrule, but if you put soap on and use a rigger, because it's longer obviously, you don't get soap in the ferrule, and I find riggers work best. So I'm just going to grab some masking fluid. It's soluble in water, but it's a little bit blobby, and you probably can't see what I'm doing. But take my word for it, I'm putting on some masking fluid. And then I'll have to wait for that to dry. And then I've got another light space here. Doing that. But you do tend to get blobby edges. You can apply masking fluid to paint that's already on there. Let's have that bit go on. I have done that in a painting. In fact, I might fish it out and show you before we start again. It will take off a little bit of paint, so you can layer up a painting by using masking fluid in between each layer, but as you can see, it does make blobby shapes. I just want to catch the light in the trees here, and I'm trying to make sort of blobby shapes. Little windows in the trees, and there's some over here, blob, 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 and some over here. Eek. Well, let's see what that comes out like. And then Copydex is water soluble, and some people do recommend you dilute it with water for certain effects. I don't tend to, and this is quite thin. Sometimes it is quite thick. So there you are. My brush is more or less perfect. So it's survived that process. And I'm just going to leave that to dry now. And I'll come back and put on my lightest wash in about 10 minutes. I've just dried this off with a hairdryer. A hairdryer is a very useful watercolourist tool, also good for acrylics. And I'll just go through my kit, which is basically my best, nicest round brushes. So I got small, medium and large. This is a kind of mop brush, and this is quite a large area, so I think I'll probably end up using that for the putting on the wash thing, which I'm just about to do. And then I'll just go through my colours. Here we are, a spare piece of paper. So I've got some colours that are not normally available to some in paint boxes that are very interesting. So here I've got something called Perylene Green, which I particularly like. It's a very dark, cool green. It hasn't got that rather livid emerald tinge to it like Viridian does. Really like that colour. Sap Green, which is often in paint boxes. That's kind of a normal green. And this colour, which I love, which is called Green Gold. If I can persuade it to come up with something. You can see that's a really zingy green. It's sort of related to this colour, which was Quinacridone Gold, which is this lovely yellowy gold colour. I'm sure some of that's in that. And the only other odd one I've got, no, I haven't really got any odd ones. So I've got some cadmium yellow here, yellow basically, sometimes to zing up something. This green gold, sorry, I've already done that one. Payne's Grey, I like a bit of Payne's Grey in my life. And actually Payne's Grey combined with Quinacridone Gold makes a very nice kind of olivey green. Because I think they've both got blue in it. And then I've got some sepia, that's another nice colour. It's a nice cool brown, rather than burnt umber. And then the other one I'm probably going to use is burnt sienna, which I like for the shadows on the path. So that's basically my palette. I don't think I'm going to use anything else. No, I don't think so. And now I'm going to put the wash on. What I might do, let's see if my sprayer's up to it, is actually wet all of this surface so the paint goes on smoother, because it's a large surface to do. I don't know if I told anybody, I once painted 3 watercolours that were 5 foot long, which was a bit of a feat, I thought, but that was wetting the paper first. I had to glue them to a tabletop in the traditional watercolour stretching thing. So I can just see, if I look sideways, that this is now damp. I'm going to make up a wash of various colours that I want. One of the main colours, I think, is this green gold for the light bit, the nice shiny light bit up here. I suppose I could rearrange things so you can see the photo as I do it. So I'm just going to put on a wash of this green gold up here. I am going to vary it depending on where I want things. And over here, and down here. So that's where I want the green. I might have a tiny bit of sap green in there. So this is what you're doing with watercolour. You're kind of painting in reverse. So you have to plan your painting, which is why doing a rough is so valuable. So this is green gold and sap green. Coming down here, I like bits, so I just want it pretty much all over. And over here, ooh, look at that, fantastic. And we're being quite sloppy, and this is very wet and wet. That's going to come down here. Ooh, a little bit of sap green, maybe. A little bit here and there. And what's happening with the masking fluid here is that it's repelling the water, and it's saving the white of the paper underneath. A bit more green gold. Yeah, I think I might Going mainly green gold here and here. Maybe not. And of course the watercolours friend is kitchen towel. Got to have some kitchen towel. Just realised I want that to have a kind of blue tinge to it, so I'm just going to dab that off a bit. And over here, so a lot of this is green gold for the light through the trees, and then it goes quite dark here, and then we've got this nice bank here. Ooh. And I'm just going to put some green gold on there. It comes down sort of there, and then comes down here. So this is the light falling on the grass, or the whatever it is, the undergrowth, with a bit of sap green knocking around here and here. Oops, sap green. Look, and over here. And I want a little bit more yellow there. That's going to be quite dark. So this is your undercoat, and then I want a little bit of burnt sienna, tiny bit for the light on the path, and I don't want it mixing in too much with the green gold. I want, ooh, it's going to mix in with the green gold. I do want. I'm just going to scrub that. And with watercolours, as I've said in all my other videos, is that when they're wet, you can do all sorts of things with them. And down here, look, let's have a bit more over here, over here, over here, over here. And I'm actually working on this glued block. You can see the paper is starting to cockle, but the excuse me, the glue block is sort of like stretched paper, so hopefully that will snap back once it's white, dry. And I did actually on my original one, my little rough, that did get rather lumpy and cockly, so all I did was actually spray the back of it. Whoa, it's a bit too dark. Spray the back of it and put it under a heavy object, and then it was all flat the following day. So I'm going to leave that, I think. Maybe have a tiny bit of perylene green over here. I wanted it cooler over here. Yes, that'll probably do. So I'm going to leave that and to dry, and then I can come back and put my next tone on it. Just trying to get some sunlight on this grassy bit. I think I need a bit more grass up there. Grassy bit. And over here. Some grassy bits. Okay, so I'm going to leave that, let it dry, and then I'll come back and paint my next tone. In fact, I'll probably get the hairdryer out. Okay. This is dry, and unfortunately it has cockled, but as I say, I've got a cunning plan to uncockle it when it's finished. I think the problem is the glue's coming away here on the block, but hopefully it won't cause too many problems. What happens often is you get these kind of hills and valleys, and the wash accumulates in there if you use it very wetly, but let's keep going. So what I'm going to do is use have a slightly darker tone of the colours I was using. So I want a good wash of green gold. Have that going on, and I probably want a good wash of sap green, so I'm just going to add water to that. And these are tube watercolours. I use those primarily because the colours are so punchy. They ain't cheap, but they are the best colours, and I find I want that deep tone quite early on in my watercolours, so I don't have to do it again because I'm not very patient. So I'm going to use my very posh brush, which was a Christmas present, which is probably hideously expensive. It's a very long watercolour sable Winsor & Newton pointed round thing, and the reason why you have sable brushes are so highly prized is because they're Arctic weasels. They have hairs on their hair, so that all those little hairs hold more water. So I'm just going in here and adding this slightly deeper tone, but this is all very warm. So I'm just going to splosh this around and hope it works. So I'm probably going to do this side of the painting first, just because you're always in this terrible terror of, oh my god, my paint's going to dry. That you want to work wet in wet. So I'm hoping this will drag over these areas. And I'm just using the brush almost like a Chinese brush, holding it at the end and wiggling around. Now I'm going to pick up some sap green. I'll wiggle that in, and I like the way it plays with the the wash that's already on there, so it kind of softens some edges. And then I'm probably going to need a bigger brush. Where's my bigger brush, which I just had? Oh, here it is. So I've got a big old sable here, I think, because I need that covering power. And always use the biggest brush you can bear to use. So I'm coming down here and looking at where I want this next tone of green to be, and I'm just going to use a combination of this green gold, which I want to be kind of dappley up here, dapple dapple dapple, and over here and over here, and then here it's really quite dark, so I want a bit more sap green, I suppose, and come down here. And then, so I'm just looking at the nice green grassy bits there. And then, I think a bit more green gold over here. And it makes that lovely zingy green. Coming down here to that. And then, I'm going to go back to my slightly smaller brush and see what I can pop in here. I do want that to be darker. Let's have a look. So I want to put some in here, and you can see this is what I like with watercolours, when it wanders off and does what it wants, but that can be quite annoying if you're not used to it. And as I was saying in my abstract lesson, letting the painting talk to you. So here, I don't like these, that line there and that line there, so I'm just using my kitchen towel as a tool, just to vary the shapes a bit there. And you see it is pooling in one of the valleys, but you know, I could use that to my advantage. Ooh. And I want to soften this, I think, so I want some green gold here. Soften that. Yeah, so we've got this nice bright. So I'm just going to throw water at it basically, just to soften the edges, and then hopefully I can cover up a lot with the when I put the shadows on. So that's that bit, that's that bit. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of yellow. I just want to pop it in various places. And I want that to be like that. So kitchen towel as a tool. And then I do want that to be darker. So I might use a bit of the Perylene green. See what happens. No, that's entirely too dark. But I think what I want to do is actually put in some structure of these trees. So I'm going to use a bit of sepia. And it's very wet actually, but I will get nice smudgy trees. So I've got very strong sepia in here. And I can just go in and put some trees in, I hope. So I'm just looking at this bit here. So I just want the trees, so those are very soft, and I can go back and perhaps put some more structure in them when it's a bit drier. So this is a bit of Payne's grey. See, this is slightly drier, but this is very wet. So Payne's grey, and I'm getting this nice sort of effect, I hope. In fact, I want to soften this a little bit, and then I hopefully can add some more later. I probably want to go around here, add a bit more foliage around that mast area. Ooh, see, it's doing interesting things. So I'll probably leave that now. I'm just going to soften that edge and go in here. Yes, maybe a little bit more sepia just here. Nah, I'm fiddling now, don't fiddle with the watercolour. I just maybe pop some of those in there. And that's going to take a while to dry. And I probably will want it to dry in the fullness of time. Ooh, that's doing something interesting with that valley. A little bit more sepia there. And the advantage of using the tube watercolours, the colours are so nice and intense. So they will you don't have to put layers and layers of them. So I'm just softening that edge. Now I'll start looking down here. What's happening there? So we got this nice sort of feeling of distance here, because it's got this slightly blue tinge to it. So I'm just going to start concentrating on that while I wait for these bits to dry, I think. Yes, let's do that. So I've just got here, I've got a little bit of something resembling blue. I'm going to mix it in with that to make a cool blue-green, and I just want to have a little bit of something going on here, something slightly cooler, because it's further away. And I'm just adding water to create nice shapes. So I do want to have that as a feeling of being a little bit further away. So I'm using a slightly smaller brush here. Let's go in there. Yes, no, maybe, no. And then that goes into that. But I just wanted that feeling of cooler green further away. Let's just let that all mess it together. That unfortunately has ended up being a wet, but I'm going to attack it again with a bit more sepia as it's drying, to put some more of these sort of hedgerows trees in. So I can pick up the paint, so I've really pretty much got paint out of the tube on my brush, and then you get a really nice dark line. Yes, that's probably fine. Fine. Watercolour is kind of like painting an emergency. That's why it's always useful to do those roughs. And I generally do them in my sketchbook, so I don't really care. I'm not going to sell them or anything, or show anybody, but just so I know the process that I need to go through to create the painting. Okay. Then I've got this area here. So again, I suppose I want to continue on putting in some foliage. So let's have some sap green up here, and lots and lots of sap green, in fact. I'm running out already. Some colours are thinner than others, and I find sap green quite thin. It's quite transparent. And so you use up a lot of it, so I might have to refuel on that one. And then within here we've got some light areas and dark areas. I want to keep some bits of light poking through. And then you can get interesting shapes by just holding the brush at the end. Yeah, so this is the tree is over here. And I know I can paint dark over that, so I'm just going to crack on and see if I can apply the colours I need to here. So I do want that to be quite green, and then this tree comes down here and then hits this bank just there, which I put on some of the green gold, but I think I want a little bit more green gold going on there. And what I'm going to do is actually spray that area, because there's a bit of a lump. If I spray it, whoa, I've just added a whole bunch more water, but let's keep going. And so a bit more green gold up here and down here. And again, that's very transparent and very fleeting, so that's disappeared too. But let's see if we can just finish off this bit. And I want to soften. I want a bit more green down here actually, but I want to soften these edges. And I'm going over here. So I'm just softening that edge, just dragging the paint away. And it's all going to be covered up anyway. So again, I want some interesting trees there, so I'm going to grab some of this sepia and just go in here to get some kind of some soft impression of trees. Maybe a bit of Payne's grey. Payne's grey. Just to deepen the tone of these trees, and they come down like this. I need some more sepia because that's so wet it's all spreading out. You can see that's dry, so it's not spreading out, but I do want that darkness over here. And a bit more sepia, I think, over here. More stronger sepia over here. And I'm going to leave that for a bit, soften that and soften that, and then I can actually add some more oomph to it in a minute. So I want a bit of this dark Payne's grey to show the darkness of these shadows, which actually go like this. And this is all wet, so it's you're getting this nice smudginess to it. And transfer to a smaller brush and try and paint this bit while I'm in the mood. Am I? Yes, okay. So we're going to have a little bit of Payne's grey, creating this dappled shade. You can see where I've put in the burnt sienna previously. That is the light on the path. So I'm just going in here. I just want to add a bit more water to the thing I've applied, so the burnt sienna can sit inside it. So I've got a Payne's grey wash here, and I'm dropping burnt sienna in that to create. Let's have a little bit more Payne's grey just here, where it's in shadow, and then it's going sort of around the corner. It is this emergency with watercolour, because I want to have all these washes mixed together, and I'm conscious that the paint is drying. There's a bit of sepia in there. I think that needs to be darker. I'll add some on later when it's dry. And then I suppose as I've started this, I ought to continue. So here I've got this kind of bank. I can turn it more grassy. I'm going to have a little tiny bit of perylene green in there to show it's kind of this bank in shadow, and then it's going to the light. So let's have a little bit of sap green. So I'm trying to create dappled shade on this, and a bit of the green gold here to show dappled shade. And again here thing. This is sap green, and it goes up there, and then it hits some burnt sienna, and this is drying, so I'm a bit worried about that, so I want that to do something. So Payne's grey again. Oops, it's too dark, and I'm just going to spread that around and add some burnt sienna to that. No, that's completely wrong. Get the idea of the shade going down the bank. And then probably joining this. So I'm just going to wet that so I have a soft edge to to work into. Yeah. That's the trouble with painting and talking. You lose sight of the painting. So I think I want a bit of green knocking around there too. In there, maybe. A bit more green. Light fiddling, bad idea. And then I'm coming over to this bit, which is in sunshine, but has a certain shadow there. Shadow, and I want some green gold, which I'm going to run out of, to indicate the sort of dappled shade in shadow. And then coming down here to this path, which is actually, I don't think my flash was on, but it seems very well lit, this bit. Because it seems odd. I might have had my flash on. Sometimes when you're in a dark place, your camera flash will come on automatically, so this seems a little bit well lit. And a bit of burnt sienna, I think, in there. Make it interesting, and that's down there too. And let's see what that's going to look like in the fullness of time. That's a bit of green over here. So I have that little bit grassy look. Okay, so now that's all wet. This is mostly wet, but I need to go in and start thinking about the detail of these shadows, I suppose. In fact, I'm going to let that dry a bit and I'll come back. Okay, this has dried off now. The cockling seems to have got a bit better. But what I'm going to do now is actually remove the masking fluid. I made sure this is dry. You can tell that by touching the paper. If it's cold, it means it's still a little bit damp. And what I'm going to do is just rub it with my thumb. I'm doing that because I know these shapes are rather blobby and I probably want to paint into them. So there we are, reserved white. And here, this was supposed to be the little bits of light coming through the trees, which I think need some modifying before I don't want to just leave them as they are. And you see, masking fluid is very hard to apply in a fine way, so it's best to not use it too much, I find. And as I say, I probably wouldn't use this normally in this painting. I just wanted to show you how it works. So you can just rub it with your thumb. If it's being stubborn, you can use a rubber. You can actually get a special product that does it for you, which is pretty much just like a rubber, but your thumb just works just as well. So here we are. So this is all dry, so I can actually work into this bit, and I will start doing this bit as well and start resolving the background a bit. So these are the paints I use. I brought them out because I probably will need some more. You can see, so they're Artist Quality Winsor & Newton, the best. Right, let's crack on. So I just want to look at this area. I might do this area first because I want to show you how the dark works. Oh no, maybe not. I think I'll do that area now I think about it. So again, I want a lot of sap green. As I say, it's quite a transparent colour. And some green gold in there, so you use a lot of it, I find. So I just want to add some darker areas in here, make those make more sense. We want some more sap green going on, just so I can have some darker areas. And what I'm going to do is probably use a slightly bigger brush. This brush holds a lot of water. So when I wet it and put it in there, it was sloshing a lot of water around, but I want it to be a little bit more flowing to have this bigger brush. So I'm just going in here adding this sap green, and then I think I need some green gold to have that sunshine through leaves effect. And I probably want something on here. I just want a little bit of light through the trees there. And again, I'm holding this nice pointy brush at the end, so I'm not fiddling around trying to paint every single leaf. So that sort of comes down here. There's something going on here. A bit of green gold. So I just want to create the idea of this textured foliage. And I probably want some green gold up here as well. So that's kind of green goldy. I just have some idea of tiny textured leaves. And what I'm going to do now, I don't know if it's going to work so well, but let's give it a go. I'm going to spray it so some of the paint will spread out a bit. So I'm just going to spray, and you get some nice sort of leafy shapes when you do that. A bit going on here and here. And a bit more green gold, I think. Whoops, that's quite a lot. So I can actually spread it out with some water. And then over here, so I want sap green and green gold up here, and then it goes into darkness over here. So what I'm going to do is actually put on a bit of this sap green, and then a bit of green gold in there, just to have a bit of texture. I find with watercolours you don't want to do too many layers. and you don't want to fiddle. So 3 layers of watercolours generally works quite well. So I'm reasonably happy with that. And now here, because I want it to be that bit darker, I'm going to use this perylene green, which almost looks black there. And I'm just going to blob it on. You can see the water is spreading it out for me. And I want that to sort of merge into the lighter greens, but then have a few spaces of lightness coming through. So up here, mix it with the sap green, why not? Come down here. Then I want something sort of happening here where it's darker. So I want a bit of darkness here where the shadow is. Ooh, there's some nice effects up there, so I just want to that idea of darker foliage messing around in there. And then there's some darker bits here, so that's a tiny bit of that. Slightly bigger brush. Oops. It's got too much stuff on it, but I'm just going to blend that in to get this idea of this dappled shade on the grass. And again, there's some shapes here created by the shadows of the trees. And then I want to resolve this. Yeah. And so I want my bluer version, which is up here. So I want a little bit of stuff happening here. Try and make that shape quite slightly less stark. And I'm just going to drag that colour out a bit and then find a little bit of darkness in here and getting the water to do the work for me, I hope. And then over here, ooh, yes, there's something happening there. So let's have a bit of light and dark in there too. So it's not just one blobby shape. And then over here, there's a lot of it, so let's go in with some of this perylene green that's nice and dark and cool, that we can add, leave some spaces to be the sunshine. So I'm just blobbing this around, blob, 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 and coming up there, and probably some sap green here. So I'm just wetting that first, and I want sap green and perylene green, I think, to be the darker version round here. And I probably need a slightly bigger brush. Go in there. And it's by putting the light on and then getting the tone of the shadows right, you will find, you hope, that you're creating light. It's the contrast in tones that creates the light. So here I've got some sepia and a bit of Payne's grey. And I think I want to put a trunk in there. Ooh, that's not really working. But I'm going to mush up my trunks. I'm fiddling now. Don't fiddle. So I don't try to have some leaves and things going on there. I'm just going to soften those edges with water. There we go. And leave it well alone. Apart from that bit, of course. So I want to have the idea of something happening over here. And let's have a bit of foliage in there, maybe. There we go. Right. I'll leave well alone. Okay, so I'm going to leave that. What I might do while I'm here is think about doing that bit while I wait for that bit to dry. So here I'm going to have a wash of Payne's grey, which is here. Oh, it's got a bit green. Oh no, that's perylene green, that's why. Let's have some Payne's grey going on there. Or rather here, maybe. Payne's grey, which is a nice cool grey. And then I'm going to be brave, and I just want to go in here, create this idea of this shadow. But the grey gives it this nice coolness that shadows have, but what I'm going to do now is actually add a bit of burnt sienna into here, and hopefully that spreads it around and then gives it that lightness. Payne's grey, Payne's grey. So I want a bit more Payne's grey in there, and then try to create these dappled shade shapes, which often drive me insane, but I do like my dappled shade. It does sort of speak of sunshine. And then it's also describing the shape of this path, so I want to have this curve to it. And there's a bit more over here. So let's do it the other way around. So that is first burnt sienna, and then I'm going to put a wash of Payne's grey on that. In here. And then use your kitchen towel as a tool. So we want to have this idea of this dappled shade. Wandering around, I seem to have developed a list. It's going sideways. I think I need something up here. Give that idea of light, I hope. Okay, and then I've got another one that follows this shadow. So let's go up here. So this is quite a dark shadow just there. Let's get some burnt sienna going on. So it's got that warmth within the shadow. The darkest point of any shadow is generally on the edge. So you want that Payne's grey to be sort of on the edge, and then the burnt sienna has to be the lighter bit in the middle, one hopes. Oops, let's have a bit more colour going on there. So I've got some burnt sienna here, and I'm just going backwards and forwards. Ooh, that's a lovely colour. And some Payne's grey within that. And the nice thing about working wet and wet, sometimes it wanders off and does something unexpected, and you just want to leave it, really. So let's have a little bit more burnt sienna in there. There we go. And then to complement that, I think I need to make this area darker too. So this is the perylene green, pretending to be shadow. This shadow that's going down here, and maybe a bit over here too. And then we got lots more shadows here, so let's keep going. Nice big brush. Use a big brush so you can cover a lot of area. So, oops, a bit dark. So I'm going to go sort of like this. Good. And I'm not paying attention. I suppose that's the advantage, actually, because I'm painting quickly. I'm not actually paying attention to the actual shapes, which is probably why it usually drives me absolutely around the twist doing this kind of thing. And then I'm going to drop in some burnt sienna. So it leaves sort of the Payne's grey around the edge of the shadow. And what I'm going to do now is, while a lot of this is wet, and as you see I had to paint like the clappers there. Let's come down here. Is actually spray it to soften some of those edges. So I'm standing back. Whoa. Yeah. Don't spray too much is my motto, because here I actually sprayed too much. So I just want to dry that bit, and of course while you're not looking, water's always up to something, like spreading out where you don't want it. But again, I need to join up these darker areas, so let's have a bit of that perylene green. So this is all dark shadows here and dark shadows here. Going into the green, a bit of sap in there. Right, and then probably over here, let's make this a little bit more interesting. So I put the sap on first. Let's try this. I'll put the sap on first. Get the idea of this dappled shade, and then drop some Perylene Green into it. Let's have a bit of green gold there too. Perylene Green. Let's see what happens then. So, and again, so I'm getting this kind of softer edge of darkness, as it were, so it's not all just one colour. Yeah, that's sort of working. You should always leave it alone when it's sort of working. Apart from this blob here, what do I do with that? I'll just spread it out a bit. Haha. So you're getting this nice idea of dappled shade and sunshine. Okay, so this bit is still a bit wet, which is annoying, but we're getting some nice shapes going on there. I suppose I could do something here. No, I'm fiddling. Leave it alone, so I'm just softening that with water. And then over here, let's be brave. I'm going to start adding mainly Perylene Green because I want to get the darkness that is here. And go in there, look at what the foliage is doing, and actually while this is still a bit wet, you're getting these nice softer edges. And it's over here, and again my nice big brush with a good point. Come in here and creating little shapes, showing light through leaves. Actually, I'm just going to refer to my previous sketch and see how I did it. It's always useful to do. So I think that's mainly sap green and Perylene Green. So I'm leaving light areas, so try not to paint over these, but they are a bit square and chunky, but being just have light bits showing through. So again, I'm almost using this like a Chinese brush, holding it at the top. And also I always paint watercolours standing up because you get a better view on that little bit further away, and you can see what you're doing better. I think when people paint with it on their laps, you sometimes get a bit tight. You're down here being very tight, so you want to, if you want to be that little bit freer, paint standing up. And this is a good height. It's about the same height as the kitchen countertop, I suppose. And just coming down here, adding some more of that. I think I might have to throw a bit of sap in here. Sap, sap, sap. And that's all ended up being the same. So maybe if I could be a little bit smaller over here, it might work better. And what I'm going to do now is also spray that area, so that might affect the shapes a bit, make them slightly less harsh. So I'm just going to mask that with my hand and spray up there. And don't do too much, because often I spray too much and I find that it just goes out of control. So let's see what's happening down here, down here, down here, and got some dark areas here. Oops. I think I might leave that, so I'm going to soften those edges and then look at what's happening here with the shadows on this bit of grass, and maybe that little bit of path as well. Let's pretend there's some shadow there. So I'm just going to, that's just pure Payne's grey. I want to soften that a bit. Kitchen towel, great tool, and bring that up there. And then, how much more do I want to do? I don't want to do that much more, in fact, because I know if I do, I'll just start fiddling. So I might try and put a few tree trunks in with a bit of sepia. Then again, no. Don't do that, you're fiddling. Oh God. So soften those edges, but to have that idea of different shapes of tree trunk, possibly. Just make them a bit darker. The trouble with watercolour is it dries lighter than you think. Obviously it has this gloss on from the wetness, but okay, I really don't want to do much more to it, in fact, because I know I'm just going to make it worse, so I'm probably going to leave it there. So here we are back again. It's more or less dry, but I am going to leave it alone because I know with watercolour, if you fiddle, it kind of dies on you. So if I fiddle around looking at every blade of grass, I think it would just die. I just want to show you my original sketch again, which I think is actually better. It's often the way. I've got lighter areas in here, and I think that works quite well, which was a complete accident. So often the way, but actually doing things quickly with watercolour I think works well because you don't have time to think about it. Now just one thing I'd want to show you is how to use masking fluid on or paint that's already there. So I did this painting some time ago and had these thorns, and you can see that they are coloured. So I covered the whole piece of paper with this colour wash, then painted those in, and then went sploosh, 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 well, not all over her, but, and then would be able to peel the masking fluid off. So you can use it to your own creative advantage. Okay, so let's hope we can all get together again soon.